Hi everyone. Welcome to Songwriter Spotlight here at the West Tennessee Delta Heritage Center in Brownsville, Tennessee. My name is Sonia. I'm your host for this evening. This program is just an example of how we work to preserve and promote the musical heritage of our area. If you're not familiar with the center, we are home of the West Tennessee Music Museum, the Tina Turner Museum, and the Sleepy John Estes Home. We're located on I-40 at exit 56 in Brownsville, Tennessee, so we hope that you will plan to join us soon. But let's get to our special guest tonight. She is a native West Tennessean. She grew up in Greenfield, Tennessee. She went off to college and wound up in the world of music, rock music. She toured in the 90s and was lead vocalist for a group called the Evan Roods. You may have heard of them. But since then, she settled down and is now a pastor with the United Methodist Church. So join me in welcoming Sherry Cothran. Sherry, we're so excited to have you with us tonight, to have you back in West Tennessee. Welcome back. Tell me, how did growing up in rural West Tennessee lead to aspirations of a music career?
It's great to be here. Wow, that's a huge swath of life. Well, I grew up singing. I've been singing since I can remember. I was raised in a Southern Baptist church, and they used to stand me up on the piano bench so people could see me, and I would belt out these old gospel songs, and my brother would play on the piano, and he always played with a kind of boogie, and so we did kind of this upbeat version, and then we would travel around a little bit and sing, and so that's always been a part of who I am. My dad leads the music at the church they're still a part of, and hymns have always been, kind of like the blood in my veins. I still do a lot of those in my shows, and so that's just always been a part of who I am, and I don't remember a time without Bible stories, and so they make up a lot of my world. And so when I kind of went off to college and went into the music industry and went that route, in a way the music helped me to feel grounded and living in Nashville, but the rock world that I was a part of, being in a rock band and being on a major label, it was kind of like a fairy tale and at times very hard and very odd. And so I think that ultimately I didn't feel like I really fit in that world necessarily. And I felt this deeper calling to pursue the spiritual path. And so I kind of left all of that, even though we were having a lot of success and sort of in between tours. And I went to wait tables at a downtown restaurant in Nashville so I could have some cash, because in between tours you don't have any money. And so at that point, I think the pieces started falling together for me to go to seminary. I ended up going to seminary at Vanderbilt Divinity, and from there had a homiletics professor, preaching professor, who was also an engineer and a music engineer and a musician, and he just taught me that writing a sermon is kind of like writing a song, and you can marry these things. And so I ended up becoming an ordained United Methodist minister, and they welcomed me with open arms. I've been ordaining women since 1968, woohoo! And so I went that route. I pastored a church in Nashville, Music City, sort of urban Nashville. Spent a lot of time working with the community that suffered from homelessness there, and that's really where I started to kind of put together this next chapter of my life that I'm doing now, which is basically writing songs out of biblical texts that are really speak to me, and sort of singing them into the world, and particularly a lot of the hidden stories that we don't hear very often.
So what's the first song you're going to do for us?
So I'm going to do a song called Still, and this is a song that I got a grant to write a CD called Kiss the Ground off of from the Louisville Institute about wisdom texts, and we don't think a lot about wisdom from the Bible, but this is from the book of Ecclesiastes. This is the preacher in Ecclesiastes. A lot of rock songs have been written out of this book. You know, the Birds, Turn, Turn, Turn. Bob Dylan's written a song, Blowing in the Wind. This is all based on this book. And so I thought it'd be a great book for a blues song. This is called Still. They call me the preacher, yeah, the overseer. This unhappy business God's given all God's children, you know. I've seen everything done under the sun. Found it such a meaningless business. Oh, the oppressed and their tears, the oppressors and their fears, yeah. And no word to bring them comfort. Still haven't found it. Still haven't found what I'm looking for. No, I still haven't found it. Still breaking down every broken door. I still believe I can make a difference in the world. It's a world. The sun rises, you know, the sun goes down. It hurries on to rise again. Oh, the wind blows to the north, to the south, round and round blows the wind. All streams run into the sea. Seems like everything's got a place to be. Every living thing but me. Oh, still haven't found it. Still haven't found what I'm looking for. No, I still haven't found it. Still breaking down every broken door. Oh, I still believe I can make a difference in the world. It's a world. That's a short version. You know, blues songs can go on forever.
Well, after high school, I know you attended the University of Tennessee at Martin, and then you went to MTSU, Middle Tennessee State University. How did you wind up as a staff songwriter on Music Row in Nashville?
So I just started interning at Warner Brothers on Music Row, and then I met a lady that runs a publishing company called Rensong. And actually her father invented Nerf and Twister, which was actually a pretty cool aside. And she invited me to come work with her, and I was kind of her assistant for a while and just learned the music industry really. I was tracking down royalties and doing copyright contracts and licenses and all kinds of things. And she was pretty successful. She had quite a few placements in country and rock. And so I kind of got to see the music world through her eyes, and it just really opened my eyes, like, this is what I want to do. This is really exciting. And so I had a lot of bands even by that time with my partner, and we had kind of landed on the Evinrudes as some kind of vehicle that we wanted to take. And we just started touring, and we go to college towns and all kinds of places. We ended up on the radio. We started on college radio, and then we kind of worked our way up to rock radio. And then we had a #1 hit that we had just kind of generated on our own throughout the Southeast, because rock stations at that time would own several other stations throughout the Southeast. And so it was different then. But anyway, so we ended up on Mercury out of New York, and then the rock and roll rabbit hole began by just touring all over the place and, you know, meeting lots of famous people. And it was really, you know, it was surreal. It was like being in another world. I met Ringo Starr in New York one night. He kissed my hand and welcomed me to the label, and I was like, okay. This is a different world. So did that for a while, and I just felt this deeper calling. You know, part of my songwriting didn't really begin until I left the band. I mean, even though I was writing on Music Row and I was trying to write stuff, I didn't really have the confidence, I think, to really develop that until I left. Because everything was going into the band, you know, and I wasn't writing most of our material. My partner was writing most of our material, and so I was singing his songs, which was a big part of the problem too. I wasn't singing my own songs, and I wanted to really grow and develop, and I think that I didn't, even though I was a published songwriter, I didn't really develop my craft until I left. And then my craft, I think, didn't really take on a life of its own until I started writing stories on these characters from the Bible, because I think it was because it was a world I was so familiar with, and I felt at home in that world, and so I could take risks in that sort of protected space. And then my songwriting really began to blossom. So even though I'd written hundreds of songs, I would say that it wasn't until later that I started to write things that I'm like, yeah, I really like that, you know.
So when you started writing stuff you really liked, what was the inspiration behind that music?
The inspiration was largely, at first it was my own experience. I had my first solo albums called Who Let the World In, and I wrote that while we were touring over in Ireland and the UK, and I was just, I was kind of unhappy with the direction my life was going with the band, and kind of not wanting to take that route. And I kind of knew at that point that I wanted to take a spiritual path, but I didn't know how to get there because I was locked up in this publishers and booking agents and record labels, and all kinds of people were depending on me to make income. And I felt kind of stuck. And so that album really helped me to get unstuck. And that was the first solo CD that I did. And I had a producer, Johnny Pierce, who's since passed away, but and a Grammy-nominated engineer, Jim Emmerich, came and helped me put that album together. And it was just full of songs about navigating that line between the spiritual and the secular, for lack of a better word, but it really was what I had to do in the rock world to make it work for me. Selling myself and selling pieces of myself that made me uncomfortable. But I just didn't, it was my 20s, I didn't know how to navigate that then. And so these songs kind of came out and talk about that journey and sort of trying to look beyond it, and also being stuck and living it at the same time.
So what's your next song?
My next song is called The Column and the Arrow, and this is just a story about, I visited Meriwether Lewis's grave on the Natchez Trace Parkway. And if you go there, there's a broken column over his grave. And I was always fascinated with the story, and particularly Sacagawea. You know, she's like my hero. And I read that he was a companion to her, and that he had been with her through the birth of her child, and that they were close. And so this is kind of how I imagined his demise and kind of the state of our nation at that time, and my own sort of Native American tendencies coming out in this. So it's Cherokee blood somewhere in me. He took the loose leaf pages from his well-worn bag. The wind was blowing from the north, but it long since lost the track. And he was still a young man, but not the man he was. The kings would place a broken column over his blood. America, your sacred eagle cries. Let the shot heard round the world from this nightmare rise, from this nightmare. She placed a broken arrow and an eagle feather there over the body that held her through the white devil's lair. She flew through his pages flew in the wind. One of the last hiding places. Oh, Kingsman, America, your sacred eagle cries. Let the shot heard round the world from this nightmare arise, from this nightmare. It's not the footfall of angels, it's not the fury and the sound, it's the quiet of your brother's blood calling from the ground, calling from the ground, calling.
After your life as a rocker, how many solo albums have you released?
I've done 3. This next one will be my 4th.
So which album is your next song off of?
This is off of Kiss the Ground. This is an album that was given a grant from the Louisville Institute to write songs on wisdom. And the last song I played was basically my take on Native American wisdom, dealing a lot with the earth and the ground and that kind of thing. And kind of the American story, you know, writing over that. And this comes to us from a poet by the name of Rumi, and he's a Sufi poet from like the 12th or 13th century, and he is super popular. I think he's like the best-selling poet in the world. But he has a lot of songs about love and about divine love, and he's quoted really often. And I put a couple of his poems together and wrote a song called "This Love." So this is that song.
If you're just joining us, welcome to Songwriter Spotlight, brought to you by the West Tennessee Delta Heritage Center in Brownsville, Tennessee. Tonight, we're talking with Sherry Cothran. She's a former rock star, a singer, songwriter, and a pastor. Sherry, how hard has it been to combine your two worlds, the world of rock and the world of religion?
Well, at first it was really hard for me to lose the rock and roll identity because it's such an ego blast, you know. And I think in many ways that's why I wanted to go into ministry, because I wanted to find a more authentic life, a more authentic version of myself, and I wanted to heal from some wounds that I had. There was all kinds of things, but the real driving force behind it was to serve, was to become involved with those who are less fortunate, and I in my work with the community that suffered from homelessness there in West Nashville, and my work alongside a group of people who are really dedicated to that, the church, I just began to, I guess, just be humbled, just understand the love of God and the nature of God was just so much bigger and broader and stronger than anything we can produce in this world. And in that love and in that service, I began to just wake up and come alive and come to life. And so I began to hold on to the things from the rock and roll world that I liked, which was just the ability to sing and write and perform. That's always been really fun for me. And let go of the other things, let go of just the chaos and the craziness and all of the things that were hard for me. And over time, it took about 10 years, I got my soul back. That's how long it took. But so being in Nashville, everyone knew my rock band, and that's kind of where we had so much success. And so people who would come to our community meal, some of our people from the homeless community that lived there in the woods, really, in West Nashville. I mean, they just loved my band. They had seen us at river stages and all these places, and so they would always carry on with me. So it was a wonderful point of contact between me and the community I served, because it was like they already knew me, and so it made it really easy to work with them and have genuine relationships with them. And so it opened a lot of doors for me, and so I'm really grateful that I went down that path. But it wasn't a sustainable path necessarily for me. It is for some people, but I guess it wasn't for me.
So not only do you write songs, you're also a published author.
Yes.
Tell us about your first book.
So my first book is called Tending Angels, Stories from the Front Lines of Heaven and Earth. And I had started a blog really when I first started pastoring, because I really just wanted to share all the stories that I was experiencing. People were coming in as refugees. We had a refugee resettlement agency in our basement, and they were coming in from places like Baghdad and telling me these stories about how churches were being bombed there. And it was just, I would hear the stories of the people who were homeless, and their stories just made them feel sacred to me. And sometimes I would have this experience, the Apostle Paul talks about, be careful when you entertain strangers, because you never know when you might be tending angels unaware. And I kept having that experience over and over again. I was like, are these people real or are they angels? Because they would say things to me like, we're going to protect you, we're watching over you, we're never going to let anything happen to you, that kind of thing. And I would have those kind of glimpses into heaven on earth, and so I wrote a song about it called Tending Angels, and then the book came out as a collection of stories that I had put in my blog at the time. So
will you play that song for us?
I'll be happy to. And we did a video too. We actually filmed it at the church. I worked with a really great film producer there in Nashville. She's an indie producer, and she ended up putting the music video in several film festivals. And so you can check it out on YouTube. I found you asleep again on your cardboard bed, on the church sidewalk, sleeping off drunk again. Good morning, you said, and you bowed your head. You said, sister, I slept the sleep of the dead. I swear we are ten angels. We are ten angels, completely unaware. Your skin is burned by the sun, and your eyes tell a story of your heartbreak. Your hair is matted by the rain. I touch you with my open hand, my brother astray. I swear we are ten angels. We are ten angels, completely unaware. You said you were keeping watch of me. Yeah, I believe you said you would never let anyone harm a hair of my head. I swear we are ten angels. We are ten each other. We are ten our sisters and brothers, angels everywhere.
Thank you for joining us tonight for Songwriter Spotlight. Beginning this evening, our Songwriter Spotlights will move to every 2 weeks. So plan to join us again here on April the 15th, still Thursday nights, still 6 p.m., but we will move to every other Thursday. Well, actually, it's the first and third Thursdays of each month. So beginning tonight, and then we'll see you again on April the 15th. Sherry, thank you for sharing your music and your stories. I want you to tell people how they can learn more about you, where they can find more of your music online. And then I'd like for you to share your current project with everyone. Tell everyone what you're working on.
So I have a website, Cothran with an A.com, and you can check out all of my music and books and ministry there. We also have a portal called the Tending Angels Project, and we're trying to encourage people to get involved with ending homelessness in their communities. So you can check that all out there. And there's also a free ebook of stories that you may have never heard before about women of the Bible, and you can download that there. You can follow me on Instagram or Facebook at Sherry Cothran, at SD Cothran. And I'm going to play you out on a song that is from my newest project called Wild and Holy Women of the Bible. And these are stories about women that you may never have heard before, and they really give us a different perspective on some of the traditional ideas that we've had about women of the Bible. These women are prophets and warriors, and they're really leading their communities. And my new project is a book and a CD based on their stories, and it has its own website, wildandholy.org. You can go there and you can pre-order it April 12th. I think we're going to be doing a concert on April 12th here with a live Q&A via Zoom, so I hope you'll join me for that. We'd love to see some faces and talk about whatever you want to talk about. We'll talk about these women. They're fascinating. This is a song called Song of Songs, and this is really a love poem, which is in our Bible, but it's really narrated from a woman's perspective, and she's chasing her lover through the streets. And this is her song. It's called 10,000 Charms. I will rise and wander the streets, looking for the one my soul loves. Have you seen him, dark as a raven, with eyes as soft as doves, with eyes as soft as doves? Let me kiss the kiss of his smile till the shadows flee. Winter's over, the rain